Is having a social enterprise of interest to you? Is being a social entrepreneur in your future? Well, today we might just find out, because today NCN Philly, which is a division of Great Careers Bang, brings to you Tracy V. Allen of TVA Consulting. And Tracy is a social entrepreneur and social enterprise expert. So let's get started. Well, good day, everybody, and welcome to the Nonprofit Career Network. This is Matt Hugg, and we have a tremendous guest today, Tracy Allen of TVA Consulting. And so you might guess that's Tracy V. Allen, right? Right. And Tracy has been involved with consulting for a long time, particularly in the nonprofit and social entrepreneur space, and really has a lot of interesting things that we're going to talk about here. This is going to be a Q&A session. Tracy really is generous in letting us just quiz her. You know, we're just going to pound question after question after question, and we'll see if we can make her sweat here. So Tracy, tell us about yourself. How did you get into this? What's your path here? This is you have so much to offer.
So, hi everyone again. My name is Tracy V. Allen, and how I got into this space is by accident. So I have a degree in English language arts. I was an English language arts educator for a little over 15 years. And in high school, I was a really good writer. I entered a lot of competitions. I won competitions. By the time I was 16, I was published. I was working in an elementary school, and I had a friend who was, she was responding to an RFP for a GED program, and she didn't know how to write the RFP. So she asked me, can you write this for me, how to respond to it? So she was like, can you write this grant for me? I was like, I don't know anything about grants. You know, she was like, you can figure it out. You're a really good writer. So I did some research, figured out the format it needed to be in, you know, understanding like the different components of grant writing. And I wrote the grant and she won the grant. And that's basically how it started, right? I was like, oh, wow, I did that. I really did that, you know? And then I went ahead and I got certified as a grant writer and just kind of started writing grants here and there for people. And then out of tragedy, I really started looking into the nonprofit space. So I already knew how to write grants. I knew a little bit about nonprofit. I had a loss. I lost a baby, and I realized that there were no organizations in my community to help women through that grieving process. So out of that, I decided that I wanted to start my own nonprofit to help women through that grieving process. Nobody wanted to talk about it. I found out that I had friends around me who had lost babies, you know, either through stillbirth, miscarriage, or right after birth that I didn't know. And I had been friends with these people for many, many years. But then I realized it was a taboo for people to talk about it. So they grieved internally and didn't have any external outputs for it. So I told everybody who I knew, because I understood basic marketing, right? So I told everybody who I knew that I was going to be starting this nonprofit. I got a lot of support. Everybody was excited, but my grief was too deep. So I ended up not starting the nonprofit, right? I was just like, I really just can't do this on a regular basis. I wasn't in the space for that at the time. But through my quote unquote marketing, right, of myself and this potential nonprofit that I was going to start, people started coming to me and asking me, well, can you help me start a nonprofit? And with my grant writing skills, and then I'm always a learner. So I went and I researched nonprofits, did some classes, understood, you know, the various components of nonprofit. And that's kind of how I got started.
Wow. So you really, so you came in the traditional way, you fell into it.
Yeah, basically head first.
Right. I mean, that's tremendous. And the fact that you are still smiling and look like you're buoyant about it is really great.
case, I'm not so happy about it. Trust me.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. What we were talking before the recording started, you've made a move from Connecticut to sunny Florida, and you're learning a whole other kind of skill now of how to get reintegrated into communities
Yes.
and connected again. Um, and that's I think really related to this topic we're going to be addressing here too. So why don't we just jump right in? And before we go too far, we'll do this at the end, but also here at the beginning, your contact information. We'll put it up on a slide in here. But what if people were to want to contact you? How would they get a hold of you?
They can go to my website. It's my initials. The business actually is the initials. It's not actually my name, but it is my initials from my name. So TVA Consulting was usually called Tracy V. Allen Consulting. I was like, that's kind of narcissistic. So I made it TVA Consulting. I made it TVA Consulting. So you can go to TVACON, like in Nancy.com, and that's where you can find me and all of my information.
Okay, that's great. And a little bit of narcissism doesn't hurt at all. Right. That's right. We won't hold it against you. So the first question that people have they have this image of a social entrepreneur, but even before we get to that, what's your definition of a social entrepreneurship? How does this work for you?
So, my definition of a social entrepreneur is someone who has a for-profit business, and a built-in component of their for-profit business is a social venture. So they're making their monies through their through their regular entrepreneurship ventures, but they have decided that there's something in their community that they want to champion. And usually it's associated to the services, the products and services that they provide in their business, and there's an extension of their business where they either support a nonprofit organization or they create a subsidized program within their for-profit business to help a section of the community.
Okay, so then is a social enterprise and social entrepreneurship, are that basically the same thing? Is that kind of a...
No. So yes and no. Let me say that. Yes and no. So a social entrepreneur, like I said, it's like me or you. We have a for-profit business, and let me just use myself as an example. So I have a for-profit business where I provide consulting services to social impactors, right?
Okay.
Or change agents. So what I charge a regular client, there are some people who want to enter into the space but can't afford to pay my fees. So I partnered with a nonprofit organization to offer a program to people who can't afford to pay me, let's say, a retainer of $2,500 or $5,000 a month to help them to build their social entrepreneur enterprise or their nonprofit organizations to success and sustainability. So I partnered with a nonprofit organization, and through this nonprofit organization, I'm able to create a program where people can pay me $300 a month through this group program, this membership program, to get some of the same services that I would offer it on the for-profit business side of my entrepreneurship venture.
Sure.
So that's kind of how it works for the entrepreneur, for the social entrepreneur. Now with the social enterprise, that is someone who says, like I would say, okay, I see that in my community, we have a serious, let's say, drug problem, right? And I create an organization specifically to solve that problem. So I'm not creating a business just for myself and my own personal needs and to leave a legacy. I am creating a business specifically to solve a social issue. That's the difference between a social entrepreneur and a social enterprise.
Okay, that's interesting.
I hope that was a good explanation.
Yeah, no, I do. That's really, that clarifies a lot of things for people, because there's a lot of confusion because just in the similarity of the linguistics, but also how it's used out there broadly in the world. So that's really helpful. Now what I was going to say before is, Is this really the jeans, torn t-shirt and scraggly hair crowd?
A lot of people think that people who are in social enterprise industry do, wear scraggly jeans, wear jeans and t-shirts and scraggly hair. And that may be true, but they're also very smart, passionate people, right? They are really invested in the improvement of their communities, and they want to go out there and help to make a change. That is their mission, is to make a change in their communities. So it doesn't really matter how they look, as long as they're getting the work done.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But, I think it's also that self-image that people bring to it and say, because if they're not that kind of person, whatever that, stereotype is, that they think that they don't fit in or they can't do that. So,
right. Well, I wear a lot of tights and relaxed wear. Right? But today I look very professional. So we know how to dress ourselves up.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Because this little shirt I have on is not quite what I wear all the time.
Right, exactly.
Why not just I guess social entrepreneurs have the option of starting nonprofits. Just as their enterprise, as opposed to a business. Why do one or the other? What's the
I love this question. I always like this question because people get their feelings when I answer it. So let me give you my perception of why people would want to start social enterprises versus starting nonprofit organizations. And Excellent. I dare say that social enterprises are going to take over nonprofit organizations. Oh. There's always going to be a place in society for nonprofits. Don't get me wrong. There definitely is a place in society for nonprofits, and they're always going to be around. But I think a lot more people are going to start deferring to starting social enterprises. One, because of the ownership aspect. A nonprofit, you don't own it, right? Right. It's run by your board, not because you started. It means that you have to stay in it.
I'm sorry, can I pause there for a second? Let's repeat that now. Nonprofit, you don't own it. There's a lot of confusion around that point.
Right.
Right, yeah.
You don't own it. It's not yours. You will always be the founder of the nonprofit organization, but it doesn't mean that you have to work in the nonprofit, on the nonprofit, be associated with it at all, right? Because if your board feels that you're not upholding the mission, vision, and values of the organization, they can vote you out.
Yep.
So that's the first thing. But with a social enterprise or as a social entrepreneur, you do own that business. It is yours, right? You are allowed to make decisions in the business either autonomously or through some type of a board structure that you decide to formulate. If you have investors or you don't, or you want to have an advisory board. So, but you do have autonomy. It is something that you can pass down to your children and your grandchildren and leave a legacy. You can't do that with a nonprofit organization.
Yeah, right. And you can even sell the business where you can't sell the nonprofit, or at least because you don't own it. Yeah, no, exactly. So, what's it? A lot of people hear about B Corps, and they're kind of confused because they think, well, if I'm a social entrepreneur or if I have a social enterprise, I have to be a B Corp. What is that all about?
So B Corp is a certification that you get through B Labs.
Okay. Right.
So any business, even nonprofit organizations, sometimes choose to go to B Corps and pay to become B Corp certified. And I just want to say for your audience, there's a difference between B Corp and Benefit Corp. Right? They're two different things.
Excellent.
So So Benefit Corp is an entity, a legal entity that you can formulate your business under to identify yourself as a social enterprise.
It's kind of like an LLC or something, right?
Right, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
But it's specifically for social enterprises.
Yep.
Yeah,
and not every state has those, if I'm not mistaken.
No, not every state has it. It's in like 32 states right now.
Oh, okay.
So, but you can formulate in another state and then run it in your state, right? As a foreign entity. So benefit, like I said, B Corp is a certification through B Labs that certifies you as a social enterprise. And then you have certain reporting. So they do like annual audits to make sure that you are running the organization the way you're supposed to, you're upholding your mission, and you're creating impact. So it's kind of like a stamp of approval that
Mm-hmm.
says, yes, you are running a legit successful organization.
Right, right. So
Yeah. And
it's
it's not cheap.
yes, I know that. And
Yeah.
it's also it's kind of, as those of us a certain age, you remember the Good Housekeeping seal, right? Or
Right.
or kind of like the endorsement, if you're what the Better Business Bureau has it, and some other ones for a nonprofit for that
Exactly.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's really good to know, and I love that you brought up benefit corporations, because that's emerging for a lot of people. Uh,
Mhm.
Folks don't know about them broadly, or even whether their state specifically would have them or not. So that's an excellent point. Uh, is there besides? I mean, B Corp really is an association, so to speak. I mean, are there
No,
associations for these, for social enterprises or for social entrepreneurs?
not really.
Hmm.
Because it's kind of like emerging outside the United States, yes, but in the
Yeah.
United States, not so much. The closest thing that you probably find to it is the Social Enterprise Alliance, where they have some type of a membership that you can join, and they help to promote your business and put you out there as, a social enterprise consultant or strategist or whatever you want to call yourself. So that's kind of like the closest that you'll find to alliance per se
Hmm.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it looks like there's a space then.
Definitely, there's a gap to be filled.
So somebody wants to start
Yeah.
an association, that would be a great thing.
Mhm.
Are there any tax advantages for being either a social entrepreneur or having a social enterprise?
No, first of all, I'm not a tax expert, so let me just put that out
Yes.
there.
Well,
But
good
no,
point.
there isn't.
Thank you. Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, there isn't really any tax advantages unless you're like a nonprofit, a 501c,
Yeah.
right? For social enterprise, you're just a regular business that is doing social good. You can take advantage of certain tax advantages by becoming fiscally sponsored by a nonprofit organization and
Hmm.
passing some of the funds through like grants or donations through that nonprofit organization.
Well, actually, that's a excellent point you bring up. Yeah, and again, one of these areas that a lot of people don't know about is fiscal sponsorship, and
Mhm.
there are organizations out there who specifically do fiscal sponsorship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Um,
one of the things that I give my group is a list of fiscal sponsors because I would prefer for them to take fiscal sponsorship from someone on that level versus just finding their own. Because the first thing about fiscal sponsorship is being able to manage your own
yeah.
finances or
Right.
and make money as well. So yeah, there are definitely organizations out, nonprofit organizations that specialize in fiscal sponsorship.
Yeah, and I describe it to people as renting a nonprofit.
Right, exactly.
I
Yeah,
mean,
basically.
you pay a fee, and they have some sort of fee structure, whether it's a portion of revenues or it's a standard annual thing or something. And some even
Right.
have an incubator program that will
Yeah,
help you get started, and with the idea to spin you off. So,
right.
uh,
Some of them have incubators and accelerator programs. And one of the things I know you didn't ask the question, but I'm just going
no,
to kind
no,
of say it. One
go
of the
for it.
things that's becoming a little popular now in the United States is incubators and accelerators that at the end of the program, whether it be a 6-month program, sometimes a year-long program, then they you get some grant monies to
Mm,
help you to get off the ground. So it can be
yes.
anywhere from 5,000, sometimes even 25 to $50,000. So those programs are pretty good, but they're very rigorous to get into. You really have to be able to be committed to the program and show some type of proof of concept, like do some research to make sure that you understand what you're getting into and you can validate and defend what it is that you want to do
Yeah.
with some
No,
data.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, I think actually that's very related because people will wonder, well, how do I get this thing started? And that's
Mhm.
one way of addressing it. I want to
Yeah.
say there's one of these, in fact, I'm sure there's one in San Francisco someplace, but one that I think is more notable than others. I can't pull the name out of my head.
Mhm.
So, do you just kind of declare, hey, I'm a social entrepreneur. Hey, I'm a social enterprise.
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. And kind of yes and kind of no, right?
Okay.
So yes, anyone could say that they're a social enterprise. But when I coach people or I consult people on social enterprise, I tell them it's a for-profit business that's run like a nonprofit, basically. So yes, you own the business, but you have to have the same level of transparency and accountability that a
Mm,
nonprofit organization would have. I am not going to give you my money to support your programs and services that you say you're going to be administering to your community unless
yeah.
you can show me proof.
Right.
Right. So, the same type of transparency that a nonprofit organization has, a social enterprise should have. Another thing with a social enterprise, remember I talked about that the fact that it's a for-profit business, especially
Right.
with social entrepreneurs, for-profit business with a social enterprise component. Those funds should also be kept separately, right? You
Mm,
should not be commingling your funds. So if I'm giving you money to support a program or service that you say is based in your social enterprise endeavors in your for-profit business, then those finances, those books should be kept separately, and that money should only be used for that purpose,
oh,
just like you would in a nonprofit.
that's a great point. Yeah.
Mhm,
Well, I mean, I love super that you're talking about transparency because
mhm.
a lot of people you need to build trust,
Yeah,
and there's always kind of a suspicion behind things. Well,
exactly.
Ray, you say you're doing that, right? But that's really just a marketing ploy, to get me in. But
Right.
no, we to show that you really do. That's huge. That
Hmm.
makes a big difference.
Yeah,
And I guess I mean, for those people who don't know that nonprofits can own businesses, while businesses can't own
definitely.
nonprofits,
That is another type of social enterprise.
right? And so I would imagine like your local thrift store
Mhm.
for a nonprofit could be considered a social enterprise, right?
Definitely, definitely. So we call those hybrid nonprofits, right?
Mm, right. Yeah.
Where the nonprofit decides, okay, they don't want to be an entrepreneurial nonprofit, which is a nonprofit that's formulated just on a fee for service basis,
Right.
right? There are nonprofits like that. So they
Yeah.
want to become a hybrid. They still want to give away most of their products and services free of charge or using some type of sliding scale. But they also know that they don't want to always just rely on donors. They don't want to always rely on grants, which is just not a good system. It's not sustainable, right?
Yeah. Right.
It's not a sustainable model. So they will create a for-profit entity with that the nonprofit owns. And I keep telling nonprofit founders that you don't own it because you're
Yes.
creating this for-profit. You still don't own that. It belongs to the nonprofit. The nonprofit is starting that for-profit company, but now you have this for-profit entity that's not regulated by the IRS, so you don't have to worry about, UBIT or any of those things,
Yep.
and you can create all of your earned income here, and then the earned income you get from your for-profit then feeds the nonprofit organization. And I just want to make sure that people understand when you're doing a hybrid nonprofit organization, whether it's the nonprofit starting the for-profit, or you had a for-profit and now you're starting the nonprofit under the for-profit
Mm,
organization, the nonprofit never feeds the for-profit. That
yeah.
is actually illegal. The
Yes.
for-profit always has to feed the nonprofit.
No, exactly. That's an excellent point. Yeah, and that the nonprofits are not owned, not just specifically by one person, but even broadly. And when I get into this in a class situation, I'll talk about the attorney general of any state has standing in your nonprofit, and that's one of the indicators that it's not owned. Uh,
Right.
so. What if you don't live up to your standards? I mean, what are the consequences of not, I mean, is it just that people stop doing business with you and all that? Or is there anything that says, hey, I didn't give that money away or something? Does that make any difference?
In some states, when you formulate your organization as an L3C or a B Corp, especially with the L3C, as a benefit corp,
Hmm.
there is some reporting, especially with the L3C in most states, there's some type of reporting that you
Ah,
have to do to show that you are living up to the standards, your mission, right?
okay.
But in most cases, if you're a social enterprise, if you're a social entrepreneur, there really isn't any reporting standards that you have to uphold to, except to the people who are supporting you, right? And
Right.
that's why I talk about transparency and making sure you have that tab on your website that says our impact. If you're marketing yourself as a social entrepreneur, you have to show the same standards of transparency, again, like you would if you were a nonprofit.
No, that's a good point. So then, that's what makes the difference. That's where the teeth are, and also people then would perceive your marketing differently or whatever. That
Right.
that makes a big difference too.
Mhm.
So, how about employees? Do they have to be bought into this concept? Is this any more attractive to the employees of a social enterprise, or for somebody to work for a social entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's trendy. They
Okay.
live in that type of society. It's pretty trendy to say you work for a nonprofit or social impact company, and
Yeah.
social entrepreneurship or social enterprises fit right into that model,
Well, let's
right?
hope that
So,
continues for a while. Yeah.
yeah. So it is trendy for people to work for social impact businesses. The difference between working for a social entrepreneur or a social enterprise is probably that you're going to get paid more because there's no
Hmm.
real restrictions on the amount of money that they can make. So they probably have the disposable income to pay you, a real livable wage, unlike a lot
Right.
of nonprofit organizations.
Okay. No, that's good. That is an advantage. And of
Mhm.
course, the people, like I said, it's trendy, so you would hope they're going to buy into that mission and connect
And
with
they
it.
need to. They need to. For
Yeah.
it for the model to work perfectly, and I mean as perfect as possible,
Sure.
there needs to be a level of buy-in from the people who are working for your organization, right? Because they're going to have to uphold that mission. They're going to have to help you to do the networking and building of the infrastructure because it's not easy. It's not easy to build a social enterprise model or social, especially a social entrepreneurship model, because in essence, you're running two businesses.
Yeah.
You're running your for-profit business, and then you have this, I want to call it a para nonprofit on the side. So
Mm.
your for-profit business should make enough money to support all of your overhead expenses in its own entity, but still have a surplus of money that you can use to feed your social venture.
Yep.
So it has
Yep.
to truly be built into your business plan and into your business model. It's not a happenstance. It's a component of your business model and your business structure.
Well, that's an excellent point to say that it has to be baked in as
Mhm.
part of this. It's not just an appendage.
No, it's not.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then, of course, your employees would buy into that. And
Right.
I imagine it's a really good recruiting tool, that people would say, hey, I feel better about this. I mean, I do remember, taught a lot of students, and one of them in particular worked for a big insurance company. And she said that their favorite thing was their volunteer days. And that now it wasn't necessarily related to, but it was just something that they did as an HR perk. And
Right.
that got her to come in and do this other work because she had this thing on the side. Now,
Mhm.
if it's baked into the enterprise, even better, because
Right.
now,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, uh, what kind is there any kind of work that doesn't make for a good, can any business be a social enterprise, or can anybody do this? Are there things that you just don't want to, cross over?
So I don't want to call it any business industries, but of course, there are certain businesses
Okay.
that just will not fit the social enterprise model. But I want to say that when you're thinking about starting a social enterprise, whether it's, the social enterprise or becoming a social entrepreneur, you want to make sure that whatever you're doing makes sense for the community. It has to be an identified need within your community, and the ability to solve that problem, or at least make some type of impact into that particular social problem.
Right. Right. So, and if your business is the antithesis of that,
Right.
that could be a problem. Yes, let's we can leave it at that. That's just fine. Are there certain kind of ventures that are, like, hey, this is where you need to be in terms of, or causes, or anything that you find is more attractive than others?
I think that people who have product-based businesses are really prized to start social ventures, right? Especially, yeah. Because there's an employment model and a training model that goes into having a product-based business.
Okay.
And so let's take, for instance, I think it's called Grayson. I just put it in my newsletter yesterday. So if I'm not saying the name of the company correct, forgive me, but it's Grayson. It's a bakery out of Mount Vernon, New York. It's in New York.
Yeah.
And they have a employment and training model. So they're a bakery, they're actual bakery, right? Where they bake goods, they have a cafe, but the people that they employ in their bakery are homeless, recovering drug addicts, recently released people from prison, just not the traditional people that we would think that you would want to hire in a company.
Yeah.
So one of the things that they do in order to make it easy for people to get jobs and create that impact, because you need money in order to change your life. Let's be honest about that.
No, totally true.
When most homeless people go to apply for a job, they can't get it because they don't have a physical address. They don't care. They don't ask you for your physical address. They really just don't care. They just want your name and social security number.
Right.
Basically. Right. Same thing. They don't care if you've been in prison, what you've been to prison for. They are just there to help you to get to the next level of your life. And through that program, they employ you, they train you, and then you're able to then be able to move to your next level. I mean, they're not paying you $15 an hour or $20 an hour. It's basically minimum wage or a little bit above minimum wage, but it's a program that works to get people to the next stage of their existence.
No, actually, that's interesting you bring that example up, because there is a chain of thrift stores here outside Philadelphia called Liberty Ministries. And Liberty is all about helping people come out of, I guess it's called Phoenix. It used to be called Greaterford Prison. And they employ all these ex-offenders in the stores as a way of reintegrating them into the community,
right,
and giving them job skills and working, kind of getting back into that workplace. So, yeah, that's excellent. That's a really good model. And so, are there things that we've talked about? How these form, and some of the, and obviously people can leverage this as a marketing advantage, right? To say that we're doing good in the community and all. Are there other special perks for being a social entrepreneur or social enterprise besides feeling good? I mean, that's not a bad one.
Well, it's kind of like what I said before. If you are a person that needs to be in control, say you're a control freak, and you don't want other people making decisions for you on a daily basis and having to acquiesce to a board of directors, a social enterprise model is a really good option for you. If you're looking to leave a legacy for your kids and build an empire that your kids can take over, your grandkids, and so on and so forth, a social enterprise is also a very good option for you as well.
Or to sell to somebody at some point.
Right, or to sell, right. Yes.
Yeah, right. Because that's
if you need investors who can own a portion of your company, a social enterprise is another really good venture.
Oh, that's a very good point. Yeah. Well, great. Are there things that we've left out? Anything that people should know about either being a social entrepreneur or having a social enterprise? That basic stuff.
Just know that it is as serious as if you were thinking about starting a nonprofit organization. It's not something to jump into lightly.
Okay.
You want to make sure that you have a defined cause that you're trying to champion. Doing the research necessary to figure out all of the details and the data that is associated with that cause before you actually get into it. I find a lot of people start social enterprises and they want to champion something that is already been championed by enough nonprofit organizations.
Yeah.
And we just don't need one more person in the space. So the same thing that I would tell a nonprofit organization, I would tell a social entrepreneur. You do not need to duplicate services. You need to find the gaps in services and fill those gaps. That is what you want to do. You don't want to dilute the pool of potential supporters or donors or contributors or grants in the social enterprise space. Because yes, as a social enterprise, you can get grants. Yes, you can get money from foundations because they are allowed by the IRS to use that same 5% that they have to use for grant making to support social enterprises as well.
Okay.
Right. And for them, it is a win-win situation because a lot of times they can either give you a grant or they can give you a low interest loan.
Sure.
Right. So that they're not only giving you the money, but they're getting money back. So they're able to create more grants and still use that same 5% pool. So that is some of the advantages of, starting the social enterprise. And in social enterprises, I also tell people who are asking for money, make sure that you're very clear about the fact, unless you have a fiscal sponsor, be very clear about the fact that you are not a nonprofit organization. You can't go out there and make people believe that you're a nonprofit organization, and then they're giving you monies waiting for this tax deduction letter at the end to file on their taxes, and something that you cannot give to them. So be very, very clear that you are not a nonprofit organization. Try not to use nonprofit terminologies like, would you like to donate to my organization? No, would you like to contribute to my organization? Words matter. And especially when people are not completely knowledgeable about the space that you're in. So you have to make sure you're using words that don't sound triggering to make them believe that they're, contributing to a nonprofit organization.
Well, remember that attorney general, that person will come knocking on your door.
Right, exactly. And we don't want to go to jail.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's a really, I like that you said that, because I think there's a lot of confusion out there in the world broadly about nonprofits. And when and this whole space that's opened up, kind of that gray scale between nonprofits and business can cause a lot of confusion. So that's a great point. Not that people couldn't up to this point, but anybody want to put a question in the chat room, or?
Can I just ask a question?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Tracy, do you help people find social impact investors?
I have in the past. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I mean, if I'm getting paid the right amount of money, I would do it. Yes.
Well, I have a potential connection, maybe, because I worked with a company in Detroit called Gingras Global, or Gingras Global. I can never figure out how to say that. So, and they actually they look at your business plan and see if it's feasible. And then they find impact investors for these social enterprises.
Yeah.
And
I
so
have done it for a few companies, but
so
most people
maybe
don't want to pay what it costs to get it done.
Yeah, well, and see, we did this in our small community because we had what are called daycare deserts or childcare deserts. There was nothing there. And so we were, as I was formerly with a community foundation, and we were trying to address that problem. And we found this company, and we'd put together the numbers and all of that, and they helped us a little bit with that too. But they said, oh yeah, you can do this, but you wouldn't have a return for like 10 years. And most social impact investors want a return in about 5 years. And they get about 4%. That's typical. So a 4% return. So I just wonder if you want that contact, I can throw it in the chat, and that may be a way for you to get that off your plate.
Yeah.
and with somebody that's all they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they do is work with the impact investors, because as you have found out, I'm sure you have to have so much income, you have to have millions in assets, and there's all of that factor, and they just do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I love these two women, and it's women owned, so I like that too. But they, when you're talking to Rami Cochin, you can see her numbers wheels turning. She's already that's all. She loves all that stuff. So I'll just drop that in the chat for you if you're interested.
Excellent.
And I just want to say thank you, because this is totally like, I had never thought about this. I from 30 years in the nonprofit business, I'm like, well, you have to start a nonprofit, but you don't. I love this. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Now, we do have in the chat here, is there a place where people should go to learn more about how to start this process? Either your website or others places to go?
So I do have that program I talked about. It's called Retain My Brain. I don't have a link right this minute, but if you do send me a message on my website, I can get it to you. I also have a YouTube page, where you found me, Matt. It's called Change Agents TV, and I have a ton of videos there on how to start social enterprises, build to sustainability, capacity building, and so on and so forth as well. And my website, I have blogs and stuff, and I also have a podcast. So there's a plethora of information that I have out there floating around. Yeah.
Well, and your material is on Nonprofit.Courses, and we're really grateful for that. That's really cool. Is anybody else have thoughts, questions? We'll put some links in the end of the video here on a page that people can check out. So that'll be your website, TVACon, right? TVACon.com, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody put up secondchancesfarm.com. And I think that was a similar organization to what we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
But this has really been great. This has been very helpful. I think this video will have a nice lifetime, because you've offered a lot of very interesting information that people will want to come back to and grab. If that's what we have for unless there are any more questions, we'll wrap this up with our thanks. And also, Tracy, if you can give out your contact information again.
Sorry, what are the tax forms? 990s for nonprofit.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
They just file as a regular business. So, there's no specific tax form for being a social entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah. The question was, what are the tax forms? 990 for a nonprofit. So what for a B and benefit? And like you said, it's just, it's a business.
Yeah, it's a business. So whatever your business would normally file as an S Corp, C Corp, it's just you're filing as a business.
Yeah, and that's important to say that we love Tracy, but she is not an accountant nor a lawyer.
Exactly. Thank you.
And so nothing that she is giving is either legal nor accounting advice. Exactly. It's your opinion, and good opinions as they are. Check it all out with your own people.
With your tax person. Yes.
Right. Exactly. But I think you're guiding us in the right direction for sure. Okay. Anything else out there?
No, that's it.
Okay.
I'm just happy to have been here. Thank you for having me and letting me share some of my knowledge. I really enjoyed this.
Well, thank you. And again, they get a hold of you how?
You can go to TVACON, like in Nancy.com, and peruse my website. It's being restructured right now, so don't judge me. But you can send me either a chat, because there's a chat box, or you can send me, go to the contact me and send me a message that way as well.
That's great. And that's TVA as in Tom Victor Alpha, con, CON.com.
Right.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Or Tracy V. Allen, right? Yeah,
you can actually go to tracyvallen.com and it'll take you to my website as well.
Oh, that'll do the same? Oh, okay. But
Yeah.
a little narcissistic there, right?
Are you on LinkedIn, Tracy?
I am. I'm
Okay
on
to
LinkedIn
connect
as
with you?
Tracy V. Allen, or my business page is at TVA Consulting Group.
I hope you enjoyed and got a lot out of our conversation with Tracy. I know I did. Now, if you have other questions for her or want to reach out to her for her services, just check out the next slide and you'll see her contact information. And don't forget to join us for more NCN Philly interviews. And thanks for being with us. Have a great nonprofit day.